Right, for those who are here, welcome to the 59th Welsh Committee AGM, Croeso. And a particularly warm welcome to not just the Welsh members of the BSBI, but also the people from across the border, and in particular to Julia Hanmer, our new Chief Executive, who has been in post now for 3 months. And Julia will be talking a little bit, introducing herself and her work at 10:30 in the next session. Right, can we have the agenda, please, John? John's doing the PowerPoint. If you could share screen now. Right, I think the first item anyway is apologies. So I will ask Elsa Wood, the Secretary, to, yes, note any apologies.
Sorry. I have apologies from Lynn Farrell, Julian Woodman, Steve Chambers and Joe Clark. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think this AGM is going to be very brief. We'll be finished well before 10:15, so no need to worry, Jim.
Steph, I had a quick, I had an email apology from Gail Quarterly Bishop this morning.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. Okay. Can you note that, Elsa? Right. The minutes of the last AGM, unfortunately, the AGM only took place by email and letter, but the minutes are in the Welsh Bulletin, the January 2021 issue. It's basically just the committee and the chair's report. So I don't honestly think there will be any matters arising, but if any of you do have any matters arising, you know, please raise your hand. No, just giving people a chance.
So
okay.
Do you want to approve the minutes, Steph? And
thank you. Yes. Can we have? Well, I assume unless anybody raises their hands to the contrary, that we can adopt the minutes. That the minutes are a correct record. Yeah, I think the minutes are approved then, Elsa. Which brings me on to item 5, the chair's report. And again, this will be fairly brief. Unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, all our field meetings were cancelled. So no BSBI field meetings took place, and many of the local groups, well, all the local groups really cancelled their meetings. That didn't stop members from getting out and about. Initially within a few kilometres of home recording, and then as restrictions eased, people travelled further, and often in small bubbles in 2s and 3s, and an incredible number of records were generated during COVID. I'm not going to mention all of those because, well, shouldn't mention all of them. I'm not going to highlight any of them because they have been printed or will be printed in the Welsh Bulletin, and the highlights were also in the BSBI News in the Wales section of the Country Roundup. Just another thing on records, people were also out and about in January for the New Year plant hunt, and I think we beat our own record in Wales, and 132 lists were submitted. So well done to everybody who did submit counts of species on New Year's Day. I think that brings me on to the bulletin, and I know that is an agenda item, but it would be very remiss of me if I didn't thank the editors for the incredible amount of work that they do during the year. There's a lot of work involved in soliciting articles, editing articles, and sourcing photos. And Richard Price bears the brunt of this, but also Sally Wyman and Catherine Slade at the National Museum of Wales, who put it all together and complete production. And we did manage to produce 2, I thought, very interesting issues during the year. I was going to mention the fact that we no longer have a Wales officer and haven't had for some time now. And that is very unfortunate. A lot of people sort of miss the help, particularly IT help in Monmouthshire. But work has been going on behind the scenes to try and get funding for this. And Julian Woodman, unfortunately, hasn't had any luck. But Julia and our new fundraising officer are working hard to try and secure funding, and I'm sure Julia will mention this later. I mentioned that the AGM sadly didn't take place last year in Bangor, and that was really unfortunate because our Vice Chair, John Palmer, did a huge amount of work in setting it up, sorting out the accommodation, the meals, the field meetings, the indoor talks. And then, of course, it all had to be cancelled. And John, again, hopefully was going to do it this year, but again, we decided that we had to pull out. So a huge thanks to John Palmer, and also to Wendy McCarthy and Delith Williams and anybody else who helped on that. John has been an absolute brick, and he's largely, with Jim, organised this meeting. So I think the Committee for Wales will be in very, very safe hands when I step down as chairman and John takes over. Well, Vice County Recorders, I also must thank everybody because they've done a lot of work in validating records for the new atlas. A lot of them have been updating rare plant registers, and some have been even writing or beginning to write county floras. And a special mention to John Crellin. He updated his rare plant register in Breconshire, and he managed to obtain funding from the Brecon Beacons National Park for having some printed copies. So well done, John Crellin. What else? I suppose the main thing now is just for me to thank all the committee. The work that we do wouldn't happen without the committee, the officers and the general committee members, and all have played a part, contributed, not through face-to-face meetings since we had our last one in March 2020, but via Zoom meetings. And nobody deserves more praise than Elsa Wood, the secretary. She keeps it all together, keeps the show on the road. And I know Elsa would really like to step down. She's done 7 years, and we're desperately trying to find somebody who can take on her role as secretary. And I do hope somebody will come forward. If any of you in the audience feels able to, do please get in touch. Kath Price, also thank you to Kath, because Kath does the minuting of the meetings in an exemplary fashion. Thanks, Kath, for your meticulous work there. I think one more thanks is due, and that's to a retiring member, Ray Woods. Everybody in Wales and further afield will know Ray. He's been a tower of strength. He's been a committee member off and on for, I think, about 40 years. And we've all benefited from his vast knowledge of botany and his many words of wisdom. So thank you very much, Ray. I don't know if you're in the audience or not, but it will be in my chair's report. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude, the BSBI in Wales and further afield. And I think that is everything I meant to cover. If I've missed anything out, it will be in the printed version that you'll get in the Welsh Bulletin. So thank you very much. That terminates my Welsh officer's report. But can I now ask Richard Price to talk about the Bulletin? So over to you, Richard.
Hi, just unmute myself. Yeah, thanks very much, Steph. And obviously, I echo all the thanks as well. Anyway, just a few words about the Welsh Bulletin. This current issue, which should have appeared about a month ago at least, is just about ready for the printers. As Steph said, it's the two ladies at the the National Museum of Wales, Catherine Slade and Sally Wyman, who do all the putting together and assembling of it. I have the easy bit. I just receive the contributions and try and solicit new ones. But yes, they've been very, very busy, obviously, with lockdown and so on. They're working from home, and so haven't been able to go into the museum, which has hampered their progress. And of course, they've been very busy with museum work anyway. So as I say, well, it should be getting to the printers now in the next few days, and it should be out then in the next week or two, hopefully. So I must thank all the contributors over the last couple of issues, and also for this issue that is about to appear. Obviously, this particular issue has the Welsh plant records in it. And so we're very dependent on the Vice County Recorders over that, and a lot of work goes into that as well. So we thank Stephen Coker, who puts those together for us, or at least formats them after he's received all the data. So I thank obviously the contributors and also the co-editors who I've just mentioned. The deadline for the next issue is probably about end of November. That's the sort of time we try and get contributions in. If anyone has got anything to say about botany in Wales, or just their home patch, or anything of interest, we'll consider it, obviously. And I can't remember ever having refused anything for going in there. So we'd be very, very grateful for as many contributions as possible. I think that's really more or less all I've got to say, Steph. So I'll hand back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. And you reminded me that I forgot to thank Steve Coker. It was in my written version, but I overlooked that. So thank you. And that, I think, brings us on to the election of officers. There we are. You should have it on your screen now. I'm going to continue as chair if you are all willing for another year. John Palmer, he's continuing as vice chair. Elsa Wood, as I mentioned, does wish to resign. So we have to, as a matter of urgency, find a replacement for her. But Elsa, would you be willing to carry on in the interim, as long as I promise to do my best to nobble somebody as a replacement?
How much do you want my teeth gritted? Yeah, okay, but I think we need to actively look for somebody else.
Yeah, I will. I promise. I'll treat that as a matter of urgency. Okay, thank you. And Liz Dean is willing to stay on as treasurer, although that doesn't involve much work now in Wales, as we don't have money of our own. And Andy Jones is willing to carry on as field meeting secretary. And I should have thanked Andy, because he did organise some meetings, but obviously they were abandoned along with everything else due to COVID. So they're the officers. And then the ordinary committee members, Steve Chambers is retiring this year. Gail Courtley-Bishop is able to carry on. Ray Woods, as I've mentioned, is retiring and will be stepping down, whereas Steve Chambers is willing to stay on the committee either as a voting or as a non-voting member. Delith Williams will stay on, and Chloe is willing to stay on. So those are the members of the committee. And as I mentioned, yes, Steve Chambers and Ray Woods are retiring, but Steve will stay on. And then the non-voting members, but very, very important members of the committee, the Bulletin editor, who you've met, Richard, the minuting secretary, Kath Price, the Natural Resources Wales representative, Julian Woodman. And then we have various non-voting members, Steve Evans, John Crellin, Kate Thorne, and corresponding members, Sally Wyman and Catherine, obviously the Bulletin editors at the National Museum, and Natasha DeVere at the National Botanic Gardens. So what we're going to do now is we're going to vote on block rather than vote for each thing separately. And Jim has prepared a way that you can just say whether you agree with having the whole committee, as I've outlined it, back on block or not. So Jim, over to you.
Okay, this is not working as I expected.
Ah.
Having tested it just before the meeting, it does seem to be working now. So I think maybe you just ask for a show of hands.
Okay. Can everybody put their hands up if they're in agreement?
Do we need a proposer and a seconder though first?
We should do, yes. The first person.
I'll propose. I don't mind. I'll propose.
Okay,
I can second.
right. Okay, thanks. And is everybody in agreement? Oh, perhaps easier to say, is anybody in disagreement? No, good. Okay, well, the committee is re-elected as outlined. And that brings us on to the final item, which is any other business. And I'm not sure how this is going to work, but if anybody has any other business, just raise your hand and then we can ask you to ask your question.
Richard has his hand raised.
Hi, yeah, I'm just going to say that Natasha De Vere has accepted a new post, I think, in Denmark. So she'll now stand down from being a corresponding member of the committee. Yes. So maybe we need to try and appoint another representative from the Botanic Garden. But that's something for us to look at in the future, I think.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Richard. Yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we've got through the AGM in the record time of 20 minutes. So you have a long break for coffee before the next session.
Do something useful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet you all at the AGM. It's great to meet you all.
Thanks, Julia. Okay, well, meeting terminated. Yeah, thank you.
Terminated. Sure.